Remember those hearty, comforting casseroles every mom seemed to have tucked into her 1960s recipe box? They were the backbone of weeknight dinners and Sunday family meals, turning simple ingredients into something memorable. These baked dishes could feed a crowd, stretch a budget, and fill the kitchen with warmth and aroma. Today, we're revisiting 30 of these classic casseroles that defined an era of home cooking. Hamburger hot dish. If you've ever wondered what dinner looked like in a typical 1960s American household, hamburger hot dish is a perfect starting point. Born out of a need for simplicity, frugality, and sheer practicality, this casserole was the kind of meal that could stretch a pound of ground beef into a comforting dinner for a family of 6, all while keeping the cook sane. Its roots lie in the post-war Midwest, where suburban expansion met the growing popularity of canned goods and boxed staples. Housewives, often juggling laundry, PTA meetings, and a phone that never stopped ringing, needed a dish that could go from stovetop to oven with minimal fuss. The ingredients are humble but strategic. Ground beef browned and seasoned, a can of condensed cream of mushroom soup to tie it all together, chopped onions for flavor, and a generous handful of elbow macaroni or broken spaghetti to give the dish body. Some variations added a layer of frozen peas or shredded cheese because even the most practical cooks knew a little indulgence went a long way. Preparation was almost comically simple. Brown the beef, mix in the soup and pasta, layer it in a casserole dish, top with crumbs or cheese if desired, and bake until bubbling and golden. The kitchen would fill with a warm, savory aroma that seemed to whisper, "Dinner is ready, everyone." Part of hamburger hot dish's enduring appeal is how adaptable it was. Leftovers could be reheated for lunch or even stretched into a second dinner with a few extra pantry staples. Some households experimented with corn, green beans, or even a splash of tomato juice, proving that creativity could coexist with convenience. For kids, it was pure comfort. Soft pasta, cheesy sauce, and savory beef melded into one irresistible bite. For parents, it was a sigh of relief, a filling, inexpensive dinner that didn't require babysitting the stove for hours. Hamburger hot dish isn't just about filling stomachs. It's about memories. Families gathered around the table after church or work, sharing stories while scooping generous portions onto plates, occasionally sneaking a bite straight from the dish before it even reached the table. Today, it feels like a relic, replaced by meal kits and instant noodles. Yet its charm endures. There's something profoundly satisfying about a dish that marries simplicity, economy, and comfort in one golden cheesy bite. Proof that sometimes the old ways really are the best ways. If you want, I can help expand it even further by weaving in a small section about the cultural context of Midwestern casseroles in the 1960s, adding another 150 to 200 words. Do you want me to do that? Tuna noodle casserole. Tuna noodle casserole is the quintessential 1960s weeknight dinner, a dish that somehow managed to be both frugal and comforting, practical yet oddly sophisticated. It emerged during an era when convenience foods were gaining traction in American kitchens. Canned soups, boxed noodles, and canned tuna were the unsung heroes of the post-war pantry. Housewives and working moms alike needed meals that could be thrown together quickly, stretch a modest grocery budget, and still impress the family without requiring a culinary degree. This casserole checked all those boxes, becoming a staple in suburban households across the country. The beauty of tuna noodle casserole lies in its simplicity. Tender egg noodles or elbow macaroni serve as a soft, chewy canvas, while canned tuna adds protein without breaking the bank. Cream of mushroom soup, the 1960s secret weapon, binds everything together, providing a creamy richness that feels indulgent despite the modest ingredients. A sprinkle of frozen peas or diced onion adds texture and subtle flavor, and a golden topping, often crushed potato chips or buttered breadcrumbs, creates a satisfying crunch that contrasts the creamy interior. Preparation is delightfully straightforward. Cook the noodles, mix with tuna, soup, and vegetables. Pour into a casserole dish. Top with crumbs or cheese, and bake until bubbling and lightly browned. The kitchen fills with a warm, comforting aroma that signals the end of the day and the start of shared family time. Beyond convenience, tuna noodle casserole carries emotional resonance. Generations remember it as a safe dinner, one that could be made with pantry staples yet felt hearty enough for a family gathering. Today, it might appear quaint beside TikTok's flashy food trends or gourmet meal kits, but its charm endures. There's something timeless about a dish that balances practicality, comfort, and nostalgia, reminding us that sometimes the simplest meals leave the most lasting memories. Chicken divan. Chicken divan is the kind of casserole that whispers sophistication without asking the cook to work overtime. A perfect middle-class 1960s dinner that promised elegance while quietly keeping the family budget intact. Its origins trace back to the Divan restaurant in New York City, where the combination of tender chicken, creamy sauce, and broccoli first delighted diners. By the time suburban homemakers got their hands on it, the recipe had been adapted for practicality. Canned soups replaced homemade bechamel, frozen broccoli stood in for fresh, and leftover roasted chicken was perfectly acceptable. The result was a dish that looked impressive on the dinner table without requiring the cook to spend hours in the kitchen. At its heart, chicken divan was about balance and convenience. Cooked chicken pieces nestled atop a bed of broccoli, smothered in a rich, creamy sauce, usually a blend of cream of mushroom soup and mayonnaise or sour cream, and topped with a sprinkle of cheddar cheese or buttery breadcrumbs. Some versions added a hint of curry powder, just enough to give a gentle nod to the exotic without scaring off picky eaters. Preparation was forgiving. Assemble the ingredients in a casserole dish, bake until the sauce bubbled and the top turned golden, and you had a meal that felt like it belonged in a glossy magazine, even if it had originated from pantry staples. Beyond the ingredients and method, chicken divan carries a nostalgic resonance. Families gathered around the table, spoons clinking against plates, savoring the creamy, cheesy goodness while sharing stories from the day. It was comfort and elegance wrapped in a single dish, a dish that made weeknight dinners feel special and Sunday suppers effortless. Today, with fast food, meal kits, and TikTok recipes dominating our kitchens, chicken divan seems like a relic, yet it endures in memory as a symbol of mid-century ingenuity, proving that a little creativity and a lot of heart can turn humble ingredients into something truly memorable. Tamale pie. Tamale pie is one of those 1960s casseroles that feels like a little culinary rebellion. Spicy, hearty, and downright satisfying, while still fitting neatly into the suburban weeknight dinner repertoire. Born from a desire to stretch inexpensive ingredients into something filling, it offered a Tex-Mex flair at a time when most American households were just discovering canned chili and taco seasoning. Housewives appreciated its practicality. One pan, a handful of pantry staples, and a dish that could feed a family of 4 or 6 without breaking the budget. The ingredients were modest but clever. Ground beef or occasionally ground turkey formed the savory base, mixed with canned tomatoes, a packet of chili seasoning, and sometimes beans for bulk. On top came a layer of cornbread batter, quick, golden, and slightly sweet, baked right into the filling. Some cooks added shredded cheese, a nod to indulgence, or diced onions and bell peppers to brighten flavor. Preparation was delightfully simple. Brown the meat, mix in the seasonings, spoon into a casserole dish, pour the cornbread batter on top, and bake until the crust was golden and the filling bubbly. The kitchen would fill with a warm, spicy aroma that hinted at comfort and a little adventure, all in one meal. Part of tamale pie's enduring charm is its adaptability. Leftovers could be reheated for lunch or even turned into a layered skillet dinner, making it a true workhorse of the mid-century kitchen. Some households experimented with corn kernels, chopped tomatoes, or even a splash of tomato juice to stretch the dish further, proving that ingenuity and resourcefulness were as much a part of the recipe as the flavors themselves. For children, it was an approachable introduction to bold spices. For adults, it was satisfying, filling, and quick to prepare after a busy day. Tamale pie is more than a casserole. It's a memory of mid-century ingenuity. Families gathered at the table, scraping generous servings onto plates, while enjoying the combination of savory meat and tender cornbread. Today, it might feel retro, overshadowed by instant tacos or Tex-Mex takeout, but its charm endures. There's something wonderfully satisfying about a dish that balances flavor, economy, and simplicity. A dish that proves even humble ingredients can deliver excitement, comfort, and a touch of culinary daring. Tamale pie stands as a delicious reminder of how mid-century cooks turned practicality into magic. Meatloaf casserole. Meatloaf casserole is the ultimate example of 1960s ingenuity in the kitchen. A dish that combined practicality, comfort, and a touch of showmanship. While classic meatloaf already had a reputation for stretching a pound of ground beef into a satisfying family meal, the casserole version elevated it into something that could feed a crowd and look impressive on the dinner table. It was the kind of meal that said, I care enough to put in effort, but not so much that I lose my sanity. In the post-war suburban era, with families juggling work, school, and social obligations, meatloaf casserole fit perfectly into a busy household's routine. The ingredients were straightforward and budget-friendly. Ground beef, often mixed with breadcrumbs or crushed crackers, eggs, and a dash of seasoning formed the base, while a layer of ketchup, tomato sauce, or even a sweet and tangy glaze spread on top added flavor and color. Some versions incorporated vegetables like diced onions, bell peppers, or shredded carrots, sneaking nutrition into an otherwise indulgent dish. Preparation was simple but satisfying. Mix the meat and binding ingredients, press into a casserole dish, pour the sauce over the top, and bake until golden and fragrant. The smell alone, rich, savory, and slightly sweet, was enough to summon the family from wherever they were in the house. Beyond its practicality, meatloaf casserole carries a sense of nostalgia. It evokes memories of Sunday dinners where everyone lingered at the table, passing mashed potatoes and green beans, trading stories about the week. Today, it may seem old-fashioned next to fast casual meals or Instagram-ready plates, but it endures as a symbol of home cooking at its most comforting and resourceful. There's a quiet satisfaction in a dish that manages to be economical, nourishing, and heartwarming all at once. Meatloaf casserole is a reminder that sometimes the simplest meals, prepared with care, leave the deepest impressions. Salisbury steak casserole. Salisbury steak casserole is the kind of dish that perfectly embodies the mid-century American approach to family dinners. Practical, comforting, and just a little bit fancy without requiring culinary acrobatics. Originating from Dr. James Salisbury's 19th century recommendation to eat finely chopped beef for health, the concept evolved by the 1960s into a casserole that could feed a family with minimal effort and maximum satisfaction. Housewives and working moms alike appreciated how it took humble ingredients and transformed them into a meal that felt hearty and complete, all in one pan. At its core, Salisbury steak casserole is a marriage of browned ground beef patties, a savory onion and mushroom gravy, and a starchy base, often mashed potatoes or egg noodles, to soak up all that richness. The patties themselves were seasoned simply with salt, pepper, and sometimes breadcrumbs or an egg to bind, then nestled in a baking dish with a mixture of canned mushroom soup, onions, and occasionally a splash of Worcestershire sauce. Preparation was forgiving. Brown the patties on the stovetop, or bake them lightly first. Assemble the casserole with the gravy poured over, then bake until bubbling and golden. The aroma of caramelized onions, earthy mushrooms, and rich beef would drift through the kitchen, signaling that a comforting, satisfying dinner awaited. Salisbury steak casserole isn't just a practical meal, it carries the weight of nostalgia. Families would gather around the table, plates heaped with tender patties and creamy gravy, passing vegetables and mashed potatoes, while sharing stories from the day. Compared to today's whirlwind of meal kits, fast food, or Pinterest-inspired recipes, it might seem old-fashioned, yet its charm endures. There's a quiet genius in a dish that balances flavor, ease, and heartiness. Salisbury steak casserole remains a testament to mid-century ingenuity, proving that simple ingredients, handled with care, can create a meal that feels both indulgent and lovingly homemade. Ground beef macaroni bake. Ground beef macaroni bake is a quintessential 1960s weeknight casserole, embodying the era's love of hearty, practical meals that could feed a family with minimal fuss. Born out of post-war suburban kitchens, it reflects a time when convenience foods like canned soups, boxed pasta, and processed cheese became indispensable allies for busy homemakers. The goal was simple: stretch inexpensive ingredients into a filling, comforting dish that could satisfy hungry kids and adults alike, all while keeping the cook sane. The ingredients are straightforward and pantry-friendly. Elbow macaroni or spaghetti provides a soft, chewy foundation, while browned ground beef offers protein and substance, and a can of condensed soup, often cream of mushroom or cream of celery, binds the mixture into a creamy, flavorful filling. Vegetables like chopped onions, green peppers, or a handful of frozen peas add texture and a touch of nutrition, while shredded cheddar or a breadcrumb topping provides a golden, bubbling finish. Preparation is uncomplicated. Cook the pasta, brown the beef with seasonings, mix everything together in a casserole dish, and bake until hot and slightly crusty on top. The smell that fills the kitchen, a mix of savory meat, creamy sauce, and melted cheese, signals that comfort is just a forkful away. Part of the casserole's charm lies in its adaptability. Families would often improvise with what was on hand: a dash of Worcestershire sauce, a sprinkle of paprika, or even a handful of canned mushrooms could elevate the flavors without adding effort. Leftovers became another meal, reheated for lunch, or even layered with fresh cheese for a second dinner, making it a true workhorse of mid-century kitchens. For children, it was approachable and cheesy. For parents, it was reliable and satisfying. Beyond ingredients and method, ground beef macaroni bake carries emotional weight. It evokes memories of families gathered around the table, plates heaping with warm, cheesy pasta, passing vegetables, and sharing stories about school or work. Today, with fast food dinners, meal kits, and social media food trends dominating kitchens, it might seem quaint, even old-fashioned. Yet its charm endures, reminding us that a dish doesn't need to be complicated to be memorable. Ground beef macaroni bake stands as a testament to mid-century ingenuity, a practical, comforting, and undeniably satisfying meal that nourished both body and family bonds. Turkey tetrazzini. Turkey tetrazzini is the kind of casserole that turns leftover poultry into a dish that feels indulgent, elegant, and surprisingly comforting, all at the same time. Emerging in the mid-20th century, it became a staple in American kitchens as a clever way to stretch the Thanksgiving or Sunday roast turkey into a weeknight dinner that could feed the whole family without much fuss. Named, somewhat fancifully, after the Italian opera singer Luisa Tetrazzini, the casserole promised a touch of sophistication while relying on humble, budget-friendly ingredients. The dish begins with cooked turkey, shredded or cubed, paired with tender spaghetti or egg noodles that soak up a creamy, savory sauce. Condensed soups, cream of mushroom was the classic choice, combined with milk or broth to create a luscious, binding sauce, often enriched with butter or a bit of Parmesan cheese for depth. Mushrooms and sometimes peas or pimentos add texture and subtle flavor, while a final sprinkle of breadcrumbs or shredded cheese crowns the dish, creating a golden, bubbling crust in the oven. Assembly is simple. Cook the pasta, mix it with turkey, sauce, and vegetables, transfer to a casserole dish, and bake until hot, bubbly, and lightly browned. The kitchen fills with an aroma that is both rich and comforting, signaling the promise of a satisfying meal. Turkey tetrazzini is more than a practical casserole. It's a culinary memory. Families would gather around the table, serving generous portions while sharing stories and laughter, turning leftovers into a centerpiece rather than a compromise. Today, it might feel a little retro, overshadowed by fast food convenience or Instagram-worthy recipes, yet its charm endures. There's a quiet ingenuity in taking simple ingredients and turning them into something warm, creamy, and crowd-pleasing. Turkey tetrazzini remains a testament to mid-century resourcefulness, proving that leftovers, when treated with care, can become something truly memorable. Beef and rice casserole. Beef and rice casserole is a classic example of mid-century American practicality, a dish that could turn a few simple ingredients into a hearty, satisfying family meal. In the 1960s, when suburban kitchens were embracing convenience foods and canned goods were king, this casserole emerged as a go-to for busy housewives. It combined affordability, nutrition, and simplicity, all while producing a dish that felt substantial and comforting on the dinner table. For many families, it was a weeknight staple, warm, filling, and capable of feeding a hungry crowd without much fuss. At its heart, the casserole relied on two main ingredients: ground beef and rice. The beef was browned with onions and sometimes garlic for flavor, creating a savory foundation. Cooked rice provided bulk, absorbing the rich juices from the meat and any accompanying sauces. Cream of mushroom or cream of celery soup often joined the mix, lending a creamy texture that tied the ingredients together, while a sprinkling of cheese or breadcrumbs on top added a golden, slightly crispy finish. Some cooks added vegetables like peas, carrots, or bell peppers, sneaking in nutrition without disrupting the familiar, comforting flavors. Preparation was simple. Brown the beef, mix with cooked rice, soup, and vegetables, transfer to a casserole dish, and bake until bubbling and lightly browned. The kitchen would fill with a warm, savory aroma that made the house feel cozy and inviting. Beyond its practicality, beef and rice casserole carries a sense of nostalgia. Families would gather around the table, plates heaped with the creamy, hearty mixture, passing side dishes and sharing stories from their day. Today, it may seem modest compared to fast food options or trendy meal kits, but its charm endures. There is something timeless about a dish that balances economy, flavor, and comfort. Beef and rice casserole reminds us that simple ingredients, treated with care, can create a meal that nourishes both body and heart. Sloppy Joe casserole. Sloppy Joe casserole is a playful, hearty twist on the classic sandwich that defined many 1960s lunchboxes and weeknight dinners. While the original Sloppy Joe required little more than browned ground beef, onions, and a tangy tomato-based sauce served between hamburger buns, the casserole version elevated the dish into a family-sized meal that was as practical as it was comforting. It emerged during a time when convenience foods and casseroles were household heroes, offering busy homemakers a way to feed hungry families quickly without sacrificing flavor or fun. The ingredients are simple, familiar, and budget-friendly. Ground beef forms the base, cooked until browned and mixed with onions, bell peppers, and a tangy tomato sauce often spiced with a touch of Worcestershire or chili powder for depth. Some cooks added a can of condensed tomato soup or ketchup to enrich the sauce and stretch the recipe further. Layers of soft bread cubes or cooked pasta are sometimes incorporated to absorb the savory juices, while a topping of shredded cheddar or breadcrumbs adds a golden, bubbling finish. Preparation is straightforward. Brown the meat, mix with vegetables and sauce, layer with bread or pasta in a casserole dish, top with cheese or crumbs, and bake until bubbly and golden. The kitchen fills with a rich, comforting aroma that instantly signals mealtime. Part of what makes Sloppy Joe casserole so memorable is its adaptability. Families would add whatever vegetables or pantry staples were on hand, turning it into a versatile dish that could accommodate picky eaters or stretch for extra servings. Leftovers reheated just as well, making it a practical choice for busy households. Children loved the sweet, savory flavor of the sauce, while parents appreciated a dinner that required minimal effort but delivered maximum satisfaction. Sloppy Joe casserole carries more than flavor. It carries memories. Families would gather around the table, dishing up generous portions onto plates while laughing over stories from school or work. Today, it may feel retro beside fast food sandwiches or Instagram-ready dinners, yet its charm endures. There is something inherently satisfying about a dish that takes familiar ingredients, stretches them to feed a crowd, and delivers both comfort and fun in every bite. Sloppy Joe casserole stands as a testament to mid-century ingenuity, showing that even the simplest meals can create lasting family memories. Zucchini casserole. Zucchini casserole is a shining example of 1960s ingenuity in the kitchen. A dish born from the desire to turn an abundant summer vegetable into something comforting, hearty, and family-friendly. During this era, suburban gardens often overflowed with zucchinis, and home cooks quickly learned that creativity was key to preventing produce from going to waste. The casserole became a go-to solution, simple, frugal, and endlessly adaptable. It showcased the mid-century knack for transforming humble ingredients into crowd-pleasing meals. The ingredients are straightforward, reflecting the resourcefulness of the time. Fresh zucchini is sliced or shredded, sometimes lightly salted to draw out excess moisture, and layered or mixed with onions, a can of cream of mushroom soup, and a handful of shredded cheddar or a mild cheese blend. Eggs are often added to bind the ingredients, while breadcrumbs or crushed crackers sprinkled on top give a golden, slightly crunchy finish. Preparation is forgiving. Sauté the zucchini and onions lightly if desired. Combine with the soup, cheese, and eggs. Pour into a casserole dish, top with crumbs, and bake until bubbling and golden. The aroma is warm and inviting, a mix of tender vegetables, creamy sauce, and melted cheese, filling the kitchen with the comforting scent of home. Zucchini casserole is more than a simple summer dish. It carries memories of family gardens, neighborly recipe swaps, and the satisfaction of turning something plentiful and inexpensive into a nourishing meal. Today, it might seem quaint next to trendy vegetable bowls or meal kits, yet its charm endures. There is something timeless about a dish that celebrates abundance, creativity, and the joy of simple, home-cooked food. Zucchini casserole reminds us that sometimes the most unassuming vegetables, treated with care and imagination, can become the stars of the dinner table. Squash casserole. Squash casserole is one of those mid-century dishes that manages to be both humble and comforting, a perfect example of 1960s ingenuity in the kitchen. During the summer months, when home gardens overflowed with yellow squash, cooks needed a way to transform the abundant vegetable into a meal the whole family would enjoy. The casserole became a reliable solution, stretching inexpensive ingredients into a dish that felt hearty, creamy, and just a little indulgent. It was the kind of recipe that could turn a simple vegetable into the centerpiece of a family dinner, all while using pantry staples and a touch of creativity. The ingredients are simple but thoughtfully combined. Sliced or chopped squash is lightly cooked and mixed with onions, a can of cream of mushroom or cream of chicken soup, and sometimes a bit of sour cream or mayonnaise for extra creaminess. Eggs act as a binder, holding the mixture together, while shredded cheddar cheese or a topping of buttery breadcrumbs adds a golden, slightly crunchy finish. Some cooks added a pinch of sugar to balance the flavors, a nod to the casserole's southern roots. Preparation is straightforward. Sauté the squash and onions lightly if desired. Combine with soup, eggs, and cheese. Pour into a casserole dish, top with crumbs, and bake until bubbling and golden. The aroma of warm squash, creamy sauce, and toasted topping fills the kitchen, signaling that dinner is ready. Beyond its practicality, squash casserole carries nostalgia. Families gathered around the table, sharing plates heaped with the creamy, tender dish, while passing side vegetables and mashed potatoes. Today, it might seem quaint compared to meal kits or fast food convenience, but its charm endures. There is something enduringly satisfying about a dish that celebrates simplicity, resourcefulness, and the ability to make the most of the season's harvest. Squash casserole is a reminder that humble ingredients, handled with care, can create a meal both comforting and memorable. Green bean casserole. Green bean casserole is arguably one of the most iconic 1960s American dishes, a simple yet enduring testament to the era's love of convenience and comfort. Invented in 1955 by Dorcas Riley for the Campbell Soup Company, it was designed to be easy, affordable, and crowd-pleasing. A perfect solution for busy housewives navigating the demands of suburban life. It combined just a few staple ingredients into a dish that could stretch across a dinner table and satisfy the entire family, all while looking festive enough for a holiday gathering. The ingredients are deceptively simple. Fresh or canned green beans form the base, providing a crisp, slightly earthy flavor. Condensed cream of mushroom soup creates a creamy, savory binder that coats the beans and brings the dish together. Milk is often added to smooth the mixture, while black pepper or a dash of soy sauce can enhance the flavor. The pièce de résistance is the topping. Crispy fried onions that brown in the oven, adding crunch and a rich caramelized note that contrasts beautifully with the creamy beans. Preparation is forgiving. Combine the beans, soup, and milk, pour into a casserole dish, top generously with fried onions, and bake until bubbly and golden. The smell alone, a warm, creamy, slightly nutty aroma, signals comfort and familiarity, a dish that belongs at the family table. Part of the casserole's enduring appeal is its versatility. Some households added sliced mushrooms, pimentos, or even a touch of cheese to the mixture, creating small variations that made the dish feel personalized. Leftovers reheated beautifully, making it a practical choice for busy families. Children loved the creamy texture and crunchy topping, while adults appreciated a side that required minimal effort but delivered maximum satisfaction. Over time, green bean casserole became synonymous with Thanksgiving and holiday dinners, a dish that could reliably evoke warmth, family, and tradition. Green bean casserole is more than just convenience food. It carries emotional resonance. For many, it evokes holidays spent around the table, passing dishes, sharing stories, and sneaking a few crispy onions before the casserole even reached the plates. Today, with the rise of gourmet vegetables and meal kits, it might feel retro, yet its charm endures. There is something timeless about a dish that blends simplicity, flavor, and tradition. Green bean casserole reminds us that sometimes the simplest combinations, beans, soup, and a crunchy topping, can become the most memorable centerpiece of a meal, uniting practicality and nostalgia in every bite. Broccoli cheese bake. Broccoli cheese bake is a quintessential 1960s casserole, a dish that embodies the era's knack for turning simple, affordable ingredients into a comforting family meal. It emerged at a time when convenience foods were gaining popularity and home cooks were looking for ways to transform everyday vegetables into dishes that felt indulgent and complete. Broccoli, abundant in grocery stores and home gardens alike, became the star of this creamy, cheesy casserole, proving that even humble produce could take center stage on the dinner table. The ingredients are simple, yet effective. Fresh or frozen broccoli, florets provide a tender, slightly earthy base, while a creamy sauce, often made from a condensed soup such as cream of mushroom or cream of chicken, sometimes mixed with a splash of milk or mayonnaise, binds the casserole together. Shredded cheddar cheese is added generously, both in the mixture and on top, creating a rich, gooey layer that melts and browns in the oven. A topping of breadcrumbs or crushed crackers adds a golden, crispy finish, providing a pleasing contrast to the creamy interior. Preparation is straightforward. Lightly steam or blanch the broccoli, Mix it with the creamy sauce and cheese. Transfer to a casserole dish. Sprinkle with breadcrumbs and bake until bubbling and golden. The kitchen fills with a warm, inviting aroma that promises comfort in every bite. Beyond its practicality, broccoli cheese bake carries a sense of nostalgia. Families would gather around the table, passing plates heaped with the cheesy, tender broccoli, enjoying a meal that felt wholesome, satisfying, and just a little indulgent. Today, it may seem retro next to fast, casual meals or Instagram-ready vegetable bowls, yet its charm endures. The dish exemplifies mid-century ingenuity. Simple ingredients, treated with care, transformed into something flavorful, comforting, and memorable: broccoli cheese. Bake is a reminder that home cooking doesn't need to be complicated to leave a lasting impression. Potato tuna bake. Potato tuna bake is the kind of casserole that perfectly captures the spirit of 1960s home cooking. Practical, filling, and comforting, yet surprisingly versatile. In an era when convenience foods were celebrated and pantry staples were the backbone of weeknight meals, this dish offered a way to stretch inexpensive ingredients into a meal that could feed a family without fuss. Housewives loved it for its simplicity, children loved it for its creamy, hearty texture, and everyone appreciated that it could be prepared quickly while still feeling like a proper dinner. The ingredients are humble but thoughtfully combined. Sliced or cubed potatoes form the base, providing a starchy, satisfying layer that soaks up the flavors around it. Canned tuna adds protein and substance, while a creamy binder, often condensed cream of mushroom or celery soup mixed with milk, ties the dish together. Some cooks incorporated peas, onions, or a touch of shredded cheese to enhance flavor and texture, while a topping of breadcrumbs or additional cheese provided a golden, slightly crunchy finish. Preparation is simple. Parboil or thinly slice the potatoes. Layer them with the tuna and creamy mixture in a casserole dish. Sprinkle with cheese or breadcrumbs, and bake until bubbly and golden. The kitchen fills with a comforting, savory aroma that signals a warm meal is ready to be served. Potato tuna bake is more than convenience, it carries memories. Families would gather around the table, scooping generous portions onto plates while enjoying a simple, hearty meal together. Today, it may seem retro beside modern meal kits or fast casual options, but its charm endures. There is something timeless about a dish that balances economy, flavor, and comfort. Potato tuna bake reminds us that with a little creativity, modest ingredients can be transformed into a meal that nourishes both body and heart, proving that mid-century ingenuity in the kitchen was as much about love as it was about practicality. Corn pudding casserole. Corn pudding casserole is a beloved 1960s dish that perfectly embodies the era's approach to comfort food: simple, hearty, and family-friendly. Often appearing on dinner tables during weeknights or holidays, it combined a few affordable ingredients into a dish that felt both indulgent and wholesome. With its golden, custardy texture and subtle sweetness, it offered a balance between savory and sweet that made it a versatile side dish, pairing equally well with roasted meats, fried chicken, or even a casual weeknight dinner. The ingredients are straightforward and pantry-friendly. Whole kernel corn, creamed corn, or a combination of both provides the base, while eggs and milk create a custard that holds the mixture together and gives it a rich, creamy texture. A touch of sugar and butter adds sweetness and depth, and some recipes include a small amount of flour or cornstarch for stability. Preparation is simple. Combine the corn, eggs, milk, butter, and sugar in a mixing bowl. Pour into a buttered casserole dish and bake until the top is set and lightly golden. As it cooks, the kitchen fills with a warm, sweet aroma that hints at comfort and home, inviting family members to gather around the table. Part of the dish's charm lies in its adaptability. Some households enhanced it with diced bell peppers, shredded cheese, or a sprinkle of paprika for a slightly savory note, while others kept it simple to let the natural sweetness of the corn shine. Leftovers reheated beautifully, making it a practical choice for busy families, and children adored the creamy, custard-like texture. It was the kind of dish that could be served hot from the oven or even chilled, depending on the occasion. Corn pudding. Casserole is more than just a side dish, it carries a sense of nostalgia. Many remember it from family dinners, potlucks, or holiday gatherings where multiple generations pass dishes around the table, sharing laughter and stories. Today, it may seem quaint compared to fast-paced, Instagram-friendly dishes dominating kitchens, but its charm endures. The casserole reflects mid-century ingenuity. Simple, affordable ingredients transformed into something satisfying, comforting, and memorable. Corn pudding. Casserole is a reminder that the simplest foods prepared with care can create lasting memories, offering both nourishment and warmth with every golden, creamy bite. Spinach and cheese casserole. Spinach and cheese casserole is a classic example of 1960s ingenuity in the kitchen, transforming humble ingredients into a comforting, family-friendly dish. During this era, convenience foods like canned soups and processed cheeses were gaining popularity, allowing homemakers to create meals that were both satisfying and easy to prepare. Spinach, whether fresh, frozen, or canned, became the star of this casserole, offering a nutritious base that paired perfectly with creamy, melty cheese, creating a dish that was as wholesome as it was indulgent. The ingredients are simple yet effective. Cooked spinach forms the foundation, often mixed with a creamy binder such as condensed cream of mushroom or cream of chicken soup, or even a homemade bechamel for those with a bit more time. Eggs are added to give the casserole structure and help it hold together when sliced, while shredded cheddar or Swiss cheese provides richness and flavor throughout the dish. Some cooks incorporated breadcrumbs or a crispy topping for a golden, slightly crunchy finish. Preparation is straightforward. Mix the cooked spinach with eggs, soup, and cheese. Transfer the mixture to a buttered casserole dish. Sprinkle with additional cheese or breadcrumbs if desired, and bake until bubbly and lightly browned. The kitchen fills with a warm, savory aroma that signals a comforting, satisfying meal is ready to serve. Spinach and cheese. Casserole carries more than just flavor, it carries memories. Families would gather around the table, passing generous portions, enjoying a dish that balanced nutrition and indulgence. Today, it might seem quaint compared to fast food options or Instagram-ready meals, yet its charm endures. The casserole reflects mid-century resourcefulness, showing that simple ingredients, treated with care, can be transformed into a meal that nourishes both body and spirit. Spinach and cheese. Casserole remains a timeless reminder of home cooking at its most comforting and practical. Eggplant Parmesan Casserole. Eggplant Parmesan casserole is a dish that brings a touch of Italian-American charm to the 1960s American kitchen, transforming a humble vegetable into a satisfying, family-friendly meal. During this era, Italian-inspired dishes were gaining popularity across suburban households, and casseroles offered a practical way to enjoy these flavors without spending hours in the kitchen. Eggplant, when sliced, breaded, and baked, becomes tender and flavorful, providing the perfect canvas for layers of tomato sauce, melted cheese, and breadcrumbs. A combination that delivers comfort, heartiness, and a little bit of indulgence in every bite. The ingredients are straightforward yet thoughtfully layered. Slices of eggplant are often dipped in milk or beaten egg, then coated with breadcrumbs or flour before being baked or lightly fried to soften and create a subtle crust. Tomato sauce, sometimes from a can, sometimes homemade, adds acidity and richness, while mozzarella and Parmesan cheese provide creamy, savory layers throughout the casserole. A final topping of breadcrumbs and cheese creates a golden, bubbling finish that is both visually appealing and texturally satisfying. Preparation is simple. Layer the baked eggplant with sauce and cheese. Repeat as desired. Top with breadcrumbs and additional cheese, and bake until bubbly and golden. The kitchen fills with a warm, inviting aroma of roasted eggplant, savory tomato, and melted cheese that immediately signals comfort and a hearty meal. Eggplant Parmesan casserole carries nostalgia as well as flavor. Families would gather around the table, sharing generous portions, passing side dishes, and enjoying a meal that felt special without requiring complicated techniques. Today, it might seem retro compared to fast casual dining or trendy meal kits, yet its charm endures. The casserole exemplifies mid-century ingenuity, transforming simple, affordable ingredients into a dish that nourishes both body and soul. Eggplant Parmesan casserole is a delicious reminder that classic flavors, prepared with care, can create lasting memories. Cabbage and noodle bake. Cabbage and noodle bake is a quintessential 1960s comfort casserole, a dish that exemplifies the era's focus on frugality, practicality, and hearty family meals. In post-war American kitchens, home cooks often face the challenge of feeding hungry families on modest budgets, and casseroles like this offered the perfect solution. Cabbage, inexpensive and widely available, became the star ingredient, providing bulk, nutrition, and a subtle sweetness that paired beautifully with tender noodles. Combined with simple seasonings and creamy binders, it transformed humble pantry staples into a dish both filling and satisfying. The ingredients are straightforward yet versatile. Shredded cabbage forms the base, often lightly sautéed or boiled to soften, before being mixed with cooked egg noodles. A creamy binder, typically a combination of condensed cream boop, milk, or sour cream, holds everything together and adds richness. Onions or garlic may be added for flavor, and a sprinkling of shredded cheese or buttery breadcrumbs on top provides a golden, slightly crisp finish. Preparation is forgiving. Cook the noodles and cabbage, mix with the creamy sauce, transfer to a casserole dish, sprinkle with toppings, and bake until bubbly and golden. The kitchen fills with a warm, savory aroma, hinting at comfort and home as the dish slowly browns in the oven. Cabbage and noodle bake carries more than flavor. It carries memories. Families would gather around the table, plates heaping with the tender, creamy mixture, passing side dishes, and sharing stories. Some households added a sprinkling of sautéed onions, a touch of butter, or even a dash of paprika to elevate the flavors, proving that even humble ingredients could be transformed with a little care. Today, it may seem modest compared to fast food dinners or Instagram-worthy recipes, yet its charm endures. The casserole reflects mid-century ingenuity, turning simple, affordable ingredients into a meal that nourishes both body and spirit. Cabbage and noodle bake is a timeless reminder that resourcefulness, care, and a little creativity in the kitchen can transform everyday ingredients into something memorable, comforting, and utterly satisfying. Vegetable lasagna. Vegetable lasagna is a mid-century casserole that brought elegance and color to the American dinner table while staying true to the era's love of practicality and convenience. In the 1960s, lasagna was often seen as a special occasion dish, but home cooks quickly adapted it to be a weeknight-friendly casserole that stretched ingredients, incorporated vegetables, and satisfied hungry families. It transformed humble pantry staples into something layered, creamy, and visually appealing, proving that home cooking could be both practical and a little indulgent. The ingredients are simple, yet versatile. Lasagna noodles form the foundation, providing structure and a tender bite. A medley of vegetables, zucchini, spinach, mushrooms, carrots, and bell peppers, adds flavor, color, and nutrition, while ricotta or cottage cheese, mixed with eggs and seasonings, creates a creamy layer that binds the dish together. Tomato sauce, whether homemade or from a can, adds acidity and richness, and shredded mozzarella or cheddar cheese tops the casserole, melting into a golden bubbling crown. Preparation involves layering cooked noodles with vegetables, cheese mixture, and sauce, repeating until the dish is full, then finishing with a generous layer of cheese on top. Baking transforms the layers into a cohesive, comforting meal, while the kitchen fills with a warm, inviting aroma of roasted vegetables, tomato, and melted cheese. Vegetable lasagna carries both flavor and nostalgia. Families would gather around the table, passing serving utensils, and enjoying a meal that felt hearty and satisfying without requiring expensive ingredients. Today, it may seem quaint next to trendy, fast casual meals or meal kits, yet its charm endures. The dish reflects mid-century ingenuity, using simple ingredients, thoughtful layering, and a touch of creativity to produce a meal that is comforting, colorful, and memorable. Vegetable lasagna reminds us that with care and imagination, even the humblest vegetables can become the centerpiece of a family dinner. Chicken and rice casserole. Chicken and rice casserole is the kind of 1960s dish that perfectly balances practicality, comfort, and a touch of elegance. In post-war American kitchens, busy homemakers sought meals that could stretch ingredients, feed a family, and still feel special. This casserole checked all those boxes. Using inexpensive staples like cooked chicken, rice, and canned soups, it transformed humble ingredients into a creamy, hearty dish that could appear at a weeknight dinner or even a casual Sunday gathering, making it a versatile favorite across the country. The ingredients are straightforward and adaptable. Tender pieces of cooked chicken are combined with cooked rice, a creamy binder such as cream of mushroom or cream of chicken soup, and sometimes a splash of milk to achieve the perfect consistency. Vegetables like peas, carrots, or green beans often make a cameo, adding color, texture, and nutrition. Shredded cheese or a sprinkle of breadcrumbs on top provides a golden, slightly crisp finish, enhancing both flavor and visual appeal. Preparation is forgiving. Mix the chicken, rice, vegetables, and creamy sauce. Pour into a casserole dish, top with cheese or breadcrumbs, and bake until bubbling and lightly browned. As it cooks, the kitchen fills with a warm, savory aroma, signaling that a satisfying, comforting meal is almost ready to serve. Beyond its ingredients, chicken and rice casserole carries emotional resonance. Families would gather around the table, passing dishes, sharing stories from school or work, and enjoying a meal that felt substantial yet approachable. Today, it may seem quaint compared to meal kits or fast casual dining, yet its charm endures. The casserole exemplifies mid-century ingenuity, transforming simple, affordable ingredients into a nourishing and comforting meal. Chicken and rice casserole is a reminder that care, creativity, and a few pantry staples can create a dish that leaves lasting memories. Macaroni and cheese bake. Macaroni and cheese bake is the ultimate comfort food of the 1960s, a dish that perfectly embodies the era's love of practicality, simplicity, and indulgent flavor. While macaroni and cheese had long been a staple in American kitchens, the baked casserole version elevated it into a hearty, family-friendly meal that could feed a crowd and still feel homey. With its creamy sauce, tender pasta, and golden bubbling topping, it became a centerpiece of weeknight dinners, potlucks, and holiday gatherings alike, satisfying both children and adults with its rich, cheesy goodness. The ingredients are humble but effective. Elbow macaroni forms the foundation, cooked until just tender to soak up the sauce. The sauce itself typically combines processed cheese or a mixture of cheddar and milk with a touch of butter and flour, creating a creamy, velvety texture that coats every noodle. Some cooks added eggs to help bind the casserole and create a firmer, sliceable texture. A final topping of shredded cheese, breadcrumbs, or crushed crackers bakes into a golden, slightly crisp crust, providing a pleasing contrast to the creamy interior. Preparation is simple. Cook the pasta, make the cheese sauce, combine them in a casserole dish, top with breadcrumbs or extra cheese, and bake until bubbly and golden. The kitchen fills with a rich, savory aroma that instantly signals comfort and home. Macaroni and cheese bake carries more than flavor. It carries nostalgia. Families would gather around the table, scooping generous portions onto plates, sharing stories and laughter, and enjoying a meal that felt indulgent yet approachable. Today, it might seem retro beside gourmet twists or trendy meal kits, yet its charm endures. This casserole exemplifies mid-century ingenuity, turning simple, affordable ingredients into a dish that nourishes both body and spirit. Macaroni and cheese bake remains a timeless reminder that comfort and satisfaction often come in the simplest forms. Shepherd's pie casserole. Shepherd's pie casserole is a hearty, comforting dish that became a beloved staple in 1960s American kitchens, embodying the era's focus on practicality, economy, and family-friendly meals. Inspired by the traditional British shepherd's pie, this casserole adapted the classic combination of ground meat and mashed potatoes into a simple, approachable dish that could feed a hungry family with minimal effort. It reflected the post-war suburban ethos, using readily available ingredients to create a warm, satisfying meal that was as comforting as it was filling. The ingredients are straightforward and versatile. Ground beef, seasoned with onions, garlic, and a few pantry spices, forms the savory base, often mixed with vegetables like peas, carrots, or corn to stretch the dish further and add color. A creamy, rich gravy binds the filling together, sometimes enhanced with a touch of tomato paste or Worcestershire sauce for depth. Topping the casserole is a layer of smooth mashed potatoes, sometimes enriched with butter or milk, which bakes to a lightly golden crust in the oven. Preparation is simple. Brown the meat and vegetables, mix with gravy, spread mashed potatoes on top, and bake until hot and golden. As it cooks, the kitchen fills with a warm, savory aroma that promises comfort and satisfaction with every bite. Beyond its practicality, shepherd's pie casserole carries nostalgia and emotional resonance. Families would gather around the table, passing generous portions and enjoying a meal that felt substantial and lovingly homemade. Today, it might seem retro compared to meal kits, fast casual dinners, or trendy gourmet twists, yet its charm endures. The casserole exemplifies mid-century ingenuity, proving that simple ingredients, treated with care, can create a meal that nourishes both body and heart. Shepherd's pie casserole remains a timeless testament to the enduring power of comfort food. Cheesy hash brown bake. Cheesy hash brown bake is a quintessential 1960s casserole, a dish that perfectly embodies the era's love of convenience, comfort, and family-friendly meals. In an age when frozen foods and canned ingredients were transforming the American kitchen, this casserole offered a simple way to turn humble potatoes into a rich, satisfying dish that could feed a crowd. Busy homemakers appreciated its ease of preparation. Children adored the creamy, cheesy layers. And the whole family enjoyed a hearty, golden-baked centerpiece that required minimal effort but delivered maximum comfort. The ingredients are straightforward, yet indulgent. Frozen or shredded hash browns provide the base, creating a tender, slightly crispy texture once baked. A creamy sauce, often made from condensed cream of mushroom or cream of chicken soup combined with milk or sour cream, coats the potatoes, binding the casserole and adding richness. Shredded cheddar cheese is mixed into the layers and sprinkled on top, creating a gooey, melty experience that browns beautifully in the oven. Some cooks add diced onions, bell peppers, or cooked bacon for extra flavor and texture, while a final layer of crushed cornflakes or breadcrumbs adds a golden, crispy topping. Preparation is simple. Mix the hash browns with the creamy sauce and cheese, layer any additional ingredients, pour into a casserole dish, top with crumbs or more cheese, and bake until bubbling and golden. The kitchen fills with a warm, savory aroma that immediately signals comfort and home. Cheesy hash brown bake is more than just a practical casserole. It carries a sense of nostalgia. Families would gather around the table, passing generous portions while sharing stories and laughter. Today, it may feel retro beside fast food options or trendy meal kits, yet its charm endures. This dish exemplifies mid-century ingenuity, turning simple, affordable ingredients into a comforting, satisfying meal. Cheesy hash brown bake reminds us that with a little care and creativity, everyday staples can become the highlight of a family dinner. Enchilada casserole. Enchilada casserole is a vibrant and hearty 1960s dish that brought the flavors of Tex-Mex into American kitchens in a way that was approachable, practical, and deeply satisfying. While traditional enchiladas required rolling individual tortillas, this layered casserole simplified the process, making it a family-friendly meal that could be assembled quickly and fed a crowd without fuss. It exemplified mid-century ingenuity, turning pantry staples and simple ingredients into a colorful, flavorful dinner that felt both festive and comforting. The ingredients are simple yet versatile. Corn or flour tortillas are layered with seasoned ground beef or chicken, sautéed onions, and a flavorful enchilada sauce, often made from canned tomatoes, chili powder, and spices. Shredded cheese, usually cheddar or a Mexican blend, is sprinkled generously between layers and on top, melting into a gooey, golden crown during baking. Some cooks added beans, corn, or diced green chilies to stretch the casserole and enhance both texture and flavor. Preparation is straightforward. Layer tortillas, meat, sauce, and cheese in a casserole dish, repeat until full, top with cheese, and bake until bubbly and lightly browned. The kitchen fills with the aroma of spices, melted cheese, and roasted tortillas, a signal that a hearty, comforting meal is ready to serve. Enchilada casserole is more than convenience. It carries memories of shared meals, lively conversation, and a sense of warmth at the family table. Today, it may feel retro compared to fast food Tex-Mex or Instagram-ready dinner plates. Yet, its charm endures. The casserole demonstrates the mid-century talent for transforming simple, affordable ingredients into something flavorful and satisfying. Enchilada casserole reminds us that care and creativity in the kitchen can turn humble components into a dish that nourishes both body and spirit, creating lasting memories with every layered bite. Breakfast casserole, egg and sausage. Breakfast casserole featuring eggs and sausage is a quintessential 1960s dish that perfectly captures the era's love for practical, crowd-pleasing meals. Designed to feed families with minimal effort, it combined inexpensive ingredients into a hearty, comforting dish that could serve as both a weekend breakfast and a casual brunch. Its layered simplicity and rich flavor made it a favorite for busy mornings, holiday gatherings, or sleepy Sunday breakfasts when home cooks wanted something satisfying without standing over the stove. The ingredients are straightforward yet indulgent. Eggs form the foundation, beaten and seasoned with salt, pepper, and sometimes a splash of milk or cream for a richer texture. Breakfast sausage, browned and crumbled, adds a savory, slightly spicy flavor, while slices of bread, cubed or torn, create a soft, absorbent base that soaks up the custardy mixture. Shredded cheese, often cheddar, is folded in and sprinkled on top, melting into a golden, gooey layer that enriches every bite. Some cooks included onions, bell peppers, or mushrooms for added flavor and texture. Preparation is simple. Layer the bread and cooked sausage in a casserole dish, pour the egg mixture over the top, sprinkle with cheese, and bake until the casserole is set, bubbling, and lightly browned. As it cooks, the kitchen fills with the warm, savory aroma of eggs, melted cheese, and sausage, a promise of a satisfying, indulgent meal. Breakfast casserole carries more than flavor. It carries memories of family gatherings, sleepy mornings, and the comforting ritual of sitting together at the table. Today, it may feel retro compared to grab-and-go breakfasts or trendy meal kits, yet its charm endures. The dish exemplifies mid-century ingenuity, showing how simple, affordable ingredients can be transformed into a nourishing, crowd-pleasing meal. Breakfast casserole is a timeless reminder that comfort, practicality, and a little creativity can turn a simple morning into a memorable occasion. Baked ziti. Baked ziti is a quintessential 1960s casserole, a dish that captures the era's love of comforting, practical meals with a touch of Italian-American flair. In post-war suburban kitchens, home cooks sought dishes that could feed families with minimal effort, stretch ingredients, and still feel satisfying and special. Baked ziti answered that need perfectly, combining tender pasta, savory tomato sauce, and rich melted cheese into a layered, crowd-pleasing casserole that could go from oven to table with ease. The ingredients are simple yet versatile. Ziti pasta, or another tube-shaped variety, forms the foundation, cooked until al dente to hold up under the layers of sauce and cheese. A hearty tomato sauce, often enriched with garlic, onions, and Italian seasonings, provides a flavorful base, while ricotta or cottage cheese adds creaminess and structure. Mozzarella is sprinkled generously between layers and on top, melting into a golden, bubbling crown during baking, with a dusting of Parmesan for extra depth. Some cooks included ground beef, sausage, or vegetables like spinach or bell peppers, stretching the casserole further and enhancing both flavor and texture. Preparation is straightforward. Cook the pasta, mix with sauce and cheese, layer in a casserole dish, repeat as desired, top with cheese, and bake until bubbly and golden. The kitchen fills with a warm, savory aroma, signaling that a hearty, comforting meal is ready to be served. Baked ziti carries more than flavor. It carries nostalgia. Families would gather around the table, passing dishes, sharing stories, and enjoying a meal that felt indulgent yet approachable. Today, it may seem retro compared to fast casual or gourmet pasta dishes, yet its charm endures. The casserole exemplifies mid-century ingenuity, transforming simple ingredients